Welcome to, I'm just going to say it, the greatest wrestling podcast of all time.
Nice.
It's a one-time only thing, but we're very excited. And I particularly am very excited today because we have with us, you may know him from the Super Best Friends, but also from his personal channel, Matt McMuscles, which if you haven't been on, you should really check out. It has this really amazing video on Final Fight. I will link it in the description. Matt, how's it going?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the greatest wrestling podcast ever, Mega Coyote Glasses.
I can still remember one of our first interactions on Twitter. You called me Janky Bandage Leg Fox, and I was like, that's pretty strong. That's pretty good.
You got to come up with new but slightly familiar material. So I personally like Mega Coyote Glasses.
That's pretty good. Impaired eyesight canine.
No, ultra impaired eyesight canine. Yeah, no.
I have always thought about, like, if anything ever happened to channel, like if it just got deleted in a massive like copyright strike or something, I'd love to give it a month and then return as Neo Eyepatch Wolf. I think that'd be pretty cool. And this time the wolf would have 2 eye patches.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
In fact, don't wait for the copyright strike. Do it now.
I might do. But Matt, we're not here to talk about any of that.
No.
We're here to talk about probably the most important issue of the modern era. Would you say so?
Yeah, next to climate change and other stuff that's not important. Yeah,
I'm not familiar with any of those things.
No, neither am I. It's just a magic word.
We're here to talk about pro wrestling.
Yes.
And we thought this would just be fun because we're both kind of like, we're both wrestling fans of a similar level in that we've both been watching it a really long time. But we're also like, we don't keep up with everything. I think maybe fair weather wrestling fans would be the way to describe us.
Yeah, no, I think there's a high percentage of wrestling fans in general. If you're to look at a pie chart, fair weather ones are probably like, Jesus, like at least 25%, if not more. That's how they would describe themselves.
If you want to watch everything, it's like 5 hours a week, and it's like I do not have 5 hours a week.
It's like I don't even masturbate for 5 hours a week. How am I supposed to watch that much wrestling? Especially if you're in Canada, like me and my ilk, you can't even really get the WWE Network, at least legally, without buying an expensive cable TV package. I cannot access the WWE Network by itself. I have an Xbox, I have a PS4. They all have WWE Network apps that are useless because if you try to put in Canada as your country of origin, when you go in, they're just like, no, sorry, it's just not going to work. And I'm like, oh, because for whatever reason, Rogers, which is one of our telecommunication giants, is just like, yeah, we bought the rights for that, so you need to go through us to get it. So I can't even not watch the wrestling I can't watch.
They do not want you to pay money for their products.
No.
But that's going to bite Vince McMahon in the ass, because who is going to fund the newest XFL?
I don't know. I don't know where that money's coming from.
I think Vince McMahon might be a wizard. Well, we're going to get into this later, but yeah, I got some theories about Vince McMahon.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I actually subscribed to the WWF Network for the I might have been screen grabbing some footage off that thing. But it's actually kind of shit. It's not great.
How so?
Okay, well, my experience with it is like, you kind of get it, and then you watch the 4 matches you've always wanted to watch, and then you're like, okay, it doesn't have, like, you have to wait 30 days for either Raw or SmackDown to come up on it, like the newest Raw and SmackDown, and so you can just kind of watch, like, yeah, and then there's like, it's a paid subscription service, but there's ads in it.
I didn't know that there are ads in it.
Yeah, and it's not great. Whereas something like New Japan Pro World, that's like that's much better, and it's just much cleaner, and all the matches are there, and you can just watch everything as it happens, and it's cool. Do you have much experience with New Japan, Matt?
In terms of watching it, yeah, a little. Like, I'll watch Wrestle Kingdom when it comes on. I met Nakamura years ago with Takahata 101 because there was just a random Ring of Honor cross New Japan event in Toronto, and we just went, and I'm like looking at Nakamura, and I'm literally salivating at him. And he's just in sweats after the show, and he's just signing rando autographs, just walking around with no real purpose. And he's just like, I'll sign whatever. And I'm like, oh, I can't go. I'm too nervous. No, what if I shit my pants in front of him or whatever? And
always a concern.
Always a concern. And Takahata, God bless him, goes, no, you have to go. This will be your only avenue. He's from Japan. Who knows what will happen in the future? Go, and let's go. Just both of us. I'll go with you. Let's just go both take a picture. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, he's like pulling me from my pants. Just come on, dragging me there. And thankfully we did it. And he put on a funny face. So I have a great photo of me and Kurt
so cool.
and him. And this is like, I'd say like 3-4 years ago now. So I have that great photo that I wouldn't have done without Takahata urging me. So there's that, and I know a few of the big stars, but I don't watch it on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's a huge commitment, and like I mainly just watch YouTube compilations of like what happened during Raw or whatever.
Right.
And then I'm just like, oh, none of this seems very good. And then I kind of and then like once a year I'll watch it. Like once a year I'll get super into it and consume everything. But yeah. How do you like? I'm really new to New Japan. Like I only started getting into New Japan maybe in the last 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. Did you see that massive Twitter thread about the Golden Lovers going around that like broke down that entire saga?
Yeah.
So yeah, someone said, "Man, I'd really love if Eyepatch Wolf like read this out," and I was like, I'll take a look at this. And I was actually in LA at the time, like alone in a hotel room, and I just read the whole thing, and I was like nearly in tears by the end of it. I was like, they love each other so much, but they can't be together. And just like really like blown away by it, How do you find because like what's been really interesting to me is I've nearly found New Japan, it's like this just completely alien better version of something I've loved my entire life. Just learning that like a superior version exists has been fucking crazy. How do you find like kind of Western and Japanese wrestling like compared to each other?
It's interesting because like a lot of the wrestling I consume nowadays is through osmosis of watching a lot of OSW reviews, where they'll touch upon modern stuff, they'll touch upon Japan every so often, and during like the 90s and stuff, it's like at least to American viewers, like Japan is just a non-factor because you could I'm not even sure if there was an avenue in which to watch it. So when there would be very random times where a bunch of New Japan guys would come over to WCW and just randomly compete for belts and then just leave for a bit. And I think WCW even did a cross pay-per-view with them one year around 94, 95. There's not much to say during that era, at least from my perspective. But like with the advent of like, internet and streaming and whatever, it's like, yeah, people are just like you said that word there. This very alien product that is, a better, more, I want to say like condensed version where it takes all the great things of wrestling that you might know and just like doesn't have all the things that dilute the WWF product, which is like promos that just go on and on and on, like builds that have no payoffs, and just like Japan is just both old school and innovative in the sense that like you just walk down the street one time, you see a guy wearing a shirt like a couple of years ago that says Bullet Club. And you don't know what it is, but you're fascinated by the shirt. So you'll go and research it, and then a week later, this guy's like, "Whoa, Bullet Club!" And like that was me. That the exact same thing happened to me. I went to this show.
100%. Like within 24 hours of watching my first New Japan match, I had my Bullet Club T-shirt.
It's like a virus. It's just
Yep.
and that happens in Japan now because there's no one's wearing like a TNA thing. You know,
I've showed all my friends how to Too Sweet, and now we do that despite me being the only one. Like me and my girlfriend Too Sweet all the time now. She barely knows what it's from.
She just knows that it's fun, you know.
She's just like, oh fuck it, look, it makes them happy, whatever.
Makes them shut up. But yeah, like for all intents and purposes, New Japan is like the WC. It's the competing product, even though it's not competing on an actual worldwide, like not worldwide, but like, you know, viewership level of like the Monday Night Wars or anything. Like, look at the roster of like look how many people they've pilfered from New Japan or elsewhere in Japan, or people that are just very familiar to the Japanese audience, like Ricochet, for example. It's like, oh shit, they signed Ricochet / Prince Puma. You know?
I was.
That was a big signing.
I had never put together in my head that Ricochet was Prince Puma.
No, I didn't know either until someone screen
Matt,
capped.
Sorry, I actually got to correct you here.
Yeah.
I recall Prince Puma was an Aztec warrior, so that doesn't.
It can't be him. It can't be Ricochet then. It's true. The blood of the strongest Aztec tribes flows through his veins. But yeah, I actually needed a side-by-side where you just showed his chest tattoo, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Ricochet. Because I forgot if like a luchador can be from anywhere. You just, as long as he has a mask on and is dark enough, it's fine. You can't really tell. But
No.
Yeah, it's every so often, like, you know, I'll meet someone one year and they go like, oh, did you catch fucking Backlash or Battleground or whatever B pay-per-views are going on? I'm like, no, yeah, I'm not really, I don't, like, I'll watch the big four, you know, and even then, like, I'll miss one occasionally. Like, I'll watch Rumble, I'll watch SummerSlam, I'll watch WrestleMania. Survivor Series is kind of the one that gets, you know, sometimes even though I did see a Survivor Series live a few years ago, the one with Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, the squash match that was like a minute long.
That was
weird.
In a weird way, that restored my faith in WWE that they would actually take a chance and do interesting things.
It was interesting, but you know what? It was weird because so many people were not used to that, where that would happen every so often in, you know, the Attitude Era or the Ruthless Aggression Era around that time period. Mm-hmm. But like as it became more PG and stuff, they would stop taking risks, like a lot. I've never seen anyone take such a huge risk by taking no risks, because you should occasionally. That's how you make your product interesting. But yeah, it's when I meet these people that are like, yeah, did you watch WWE or are you into it? There's a pay-per-view on tonight, usually if I'm at a con or whatever. I'm like, no. And then I'll see them the next year, and then they'll be like, they won't talk about WWE anymore, and they'll be talking about New Japan.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think like it is kind of nearly difficult to describe it to just like non-wrestling fans. I was talking about it on my podcast, and I was explaining it to my like co-host Neve, and all I could think to say was like, okay, imagine wrestling, except everyone's gimmick is that they just really love wrestling and try hard. And she was like, that sounds awful. And I was like, no, wait.
Okay, then you give the alternative where you're like, well, imagine a thing where no one tries hard, and some of the wrestlers don't even really like wrestling, like their personas or whatever. They'll be like, yeah, whatever. Or, you know, Elias, where it's like, no, it's mostly about getting my gimmick over or whatever of being a wandering vagabond that sings and stuff like that. Like, it's not.
Does he think that? Like, he doesn't like wrestling?
No, I just mean that, like, it's not his actual. It's not why you watch him, really.
Totally.
And that's what that's what a lot of gimmicks seem to be about, though. It's just like, oh, get my gimmick over, and not that I might be, even if I'm a good competitor, that's not why. That's not what WWE have prepared for me, you know?
Yeah. It's actually interesting. I was watching this video, and it's from Showbuckle. I mentioned him in a recent video, and he does like a lot of New Japan. All his videos are like New Japan related, and his channels, I think his channel's run into some trouble lately, but I hope his videos went down, but then they're back up. But he had this really fascinating one about New Japan's Young Lion program, and it's like how New Japan trains its wrestlers, and it's like, if you're a new lion, you have to have like this very specific haircut. You have to just have black trunks, black boots, and all you can use is like a hip toss, a headlock, and a Boston Crab. Those are the only moves you're allowed to use. And like the idea is that once you learn to tell a story in the ring with just that, and once you learn to sell just those moves, at that point you're a bit more ready for like more advanced moves and gimmicks and stuff like that. But they spend like 3 or 4 years just with that setup.
So it's basically telling an artist, like, make a great painting, but we're going to give you very limited tools. We're going to give you very limited, like, canvas or something. Just basically...
Yeah, like say an artist just painting in black and white, so they get a real good mastery of tone, and then you introduce hue. And I thought that was so interesting. That and really kind of... When you think about, like, how well put together a New Japan match is, it makes sense that that's their starting position,
right?
Because you can imagine a lot of... I trained as a wrestler in Ireland for a little bit,
really,
and it was fucking fascinating. It was the coolest thing ever. I did it for about 6 months, and then I started getting into doing like more YouTube, and it kind of got to the point where I was like, I can either go be a wrestler or go be a YouTuber. And I like to think both decisions were wrong, but like I made the choice I did, and here we are. But it was interesting then because it was so different, because like they were trying to teach us, like they were trying to teach us like holds and throws and stuff like that, but there was also a huge concentration on like interacting with the crowd, and like a few guys like had gimmicks, like a few guys in training had gimmicks, and it was definitely kind of awkward because they'd try and like do a move and they do it wrong, and then one would be like, well, no, that's part of my persona. And so it was interesting to see. And like, I worked with this fucking amazing guy. He used to be like Triple H's training partner,
really,
and he was just like an old school wrestler, and he'd just tell us these really interesting stories about wrestling, and he'd show us like secret wrestler handshakes and stuff. It was awesome.
Cool. I know one person, fairly intimately, that's like training in NXT right now. And it's been really fascinating to talk to him about like, what really goes into it, and a lot of the like kind of weird things you have to adhere to. I'll go into one, which was like, I had a shirt that I wore at WrestleMania, the one in Texas that had, WrestleMania 33, I don't know. The one in Texas where it was AJ versus Shane McMahon, and then, whatever. And I had a shirt that was the Bullet Club template, but it was Sasha Banks. So it was like the Bullet Club like skull, but it had like her glasses on the skull, and it said like the boss or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's a cool shirt. And I got like 2 compliments on it from people who are like, whoa, where'd you get that? I'm like, oh, I just bought it online. Because there's like a million that are like that, But that was the one I had. And then I would go on Twitter and I'd see Sasha Banks like retweeting everyone that had Sasha Banks shit on. And I'll be like, oh, I senpai will notice me now too. So I would take a picture of me looking like cute as fuck in my shirt, and I'd send it to her, and just nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe one day. So then I was talking to my friend that's in NXT, and he's like, well, she's not going to retweet that because that's not WWE merch.
Yeah, I figured
and I'm
that's
like,
what it was.
Oh, yeah, I guess. He's like, that's one of the first things they tell you if you get like social media is like, don't you dare retweet or like post anything that's not officially WWE. Like if you post like, obviously they know enough to not post things from other federations or companies, but like I can't even like repost something that is me. It's just not me. They're like, nope. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, so there's little things like that you never even think of, especially since like like we already discussed, I watch I consume wrestling about the same amount of you as you, but like a lot of people, like, oh, I was the Attitude Era. I was all in there watching every week, and because it wasn't that much of a time sink. Like it was Raw was, I think, still 2 hours back then. I'm not sure.
I think Raw and SmackDown were both 2 hours, but I think we were teenagers.
Yes, so you had a lot of more free time, really.
Yeah.
And back then, it's like, what's social media? It's and you just think wrestling. It's that's all there is. But nowadays, there's so much more that goes into everything. Like, you have to have a Twitter account. If you don't have a Twitter account, then what are they supposed to put on your nameplate when you come out on TV? So
yeah, and like there are parts of it that kind of like I feel kind of damage the fiction, because I know like now most wrestlers, they seem like part of the deal is you have to wear your merchandise when you come out if you're not wrestling. And so like Asuka will come out in an Asuka t-shirt, and the t-shirt's dope as fuck.
Yeah.
But I just don't see Asuka as someone who would wear her own merchandise, that way. Like, I just see her as someone who she'd be off in her own crazy fucking world. Yeah. And I think it kind of waters down her character a little bit.
Like, if she would actually be backstage playing the Virtual Boy. That seems like something she would do. But like, yeah, I totally know what you mean, because I think that was also said to me that's like, if you're not wrestling, then you're not really selling yourself per se right now. But what you can do is wear your merch so that people will see the merch, and that way you'll still kind of be working.
Maybe that's what we should do from now on. Maybe we should always be wearing. We should always be on brand.
I don't like wearing my own shit anymore. Like, I have a hat that my wife had made special for me, but that has my like side channel logo, and I'll wear that. But like everything else, I'm like, no, I want to wear this Godzilla shirt, or I want to wear like this, like whatever. And I'm like, no, it's cheesy to wear your own shit. But in wrestling, you don't have a choice.
No, you do not have a choice. I had one Super Eyepatch Wolf t-shirt printed up ages ago, because I was going to a con and my face wasn't out there, so it was the only way someone could recognize me.
Right.
And like, whenever I see it in my closet now, I'm just like, ugh.
It's amazing.
It just grosses me out. I'm like, oh, I don't want to wear that.
So wait, so is it hanging in your closet, and then when you're trying to go to sleep, you can see it hang in the closet, so you go over and close the door, and then go back to bed? Like it's the fucking Babadook?
It's like crumpled up in my pajama t-shirt pile.
Yeah.
And sometimes like one time I came home, or one time my girlfriend came home. I never leave the house because I'm a fucking YouTuber.
Right.
And my girlfriend came home and I was wearing it, and she was like, "Oh God, is this what the lack of laundry has reduced you to?" But yeah, it was like getting back to Asuka. Have you ever like looked into? This is gonna sound creepy. Have you ever looked into like her like personal life?
No, yes. I answered it before you had to ask the question. Yeah, no.
She is amazing.
She is.
Wow.
Like, now I think it's almost legendary, and I've heard multiple reports where, like, she used to work for Famitsu, she was a reviewer, or she used to, like, program DS games or something.
Owns her own hair salon, is a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. It's a weird thing with me. Like, I don't really get like starstruck very much. Like, I'm kind of just like, I used to get starstruck over YouTubers, but now that veil has been lifted back and I see the awful life it actually is.
Oh, look at all these troglodytes.
But like, professional wrestlers get me like legitimately. Like, if I met Asuka, I probably wouldn't be able to speak. Or like Kenny Omega or Ibushi or Okada, or like, that would just blow my mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's the same to me, because even like, if there's two other levels of it, and it's the levels of like the older guys that don't like if I met Austin or The Rock or Steve Blackman or something.
Steve Black, I'd be like, I'd bring a foam cheese head and be like, could you just please put it on.
Please hit it with your sticks. So if I saw one of those guys, it'd be different. But because they're almost like mystical and legendary in a way. But again, with the advent of social media, it's like if ever I want to see Xavier Woods do something, I can watch anything. I can watch anything on Up, Up, Down, Down, and do whatever. So when I did meet Xavier Woods and I was on Up, Up, Down, Down, he just like, to me, it was like he seemed like a natural guy. Like, it's like I already kind of knew him, because you can access wrestlers in so many different ways now. You can, they some of them have YouTube channels. A lot of them star on Up, Up, Down, Down. You can just see them just like, not have their personas on, and they're just playing games for fun. Like, you can see people that hate each other in the ring, that have a blood feud going on, and sometimes they'll be playing Madden against each other on that channel. So there's a lot of like neat things that are going on when you can kind of you kind of feel like these superstars a bit more intimately than you used to, really.
True, and it's like, I think like the internet and social media changed wrestling so much, because even something like the curtain call, I talked about the curtain call in the video, like it was it like that might not have been a big deal if camcorders weren't a thing and the internet wasn't a thing. It wouldn't have mattered, but they just didn't see the advancements of technology like affecting it that way. And I think it's weird, because social media has kind of changed wrestling as well. Like, it was really weird for me after WrestleMania seeing like the Ronda Rousey Triple H match, and like going on Instagram afterwards, and like, they're meant to hate each other, and then on Instagram Triple H is like so proud of Ronda Rousey, and it's like,
she beat you
for beating your fucking ass.
It's good for the business. It was good for the business that I lost. Hey, Bray Wyatt wouldn't have an entrance if we didn't have cell phones.
Oh man, yeah.
Like, and at the same WrestleMania I mentioned, that was 100,000 seater. Being in there for that was amazing. It
I'd say so.
is a bunch of jackasses waving their phones around, but it's awe-inspiring when you're like, even in a small arena, it's still probably a thrill to see that.
I really feel he is maybe one of the most wasted potential of the modern generation. Like,
definitely up there.
What a fucking talent, and just they don't do anything with him.
Yeah.
I did read, there was a feud between him and John Cena I liked a little while ago, because the whole idea was that Bray Wyatt was trying to make John Cena so angry that he would murder him.
I thought that was going to be amazing. I thought he was like, yeah, John Cena would turn heel due to this. And I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. And like, nope.
That's the problem with Bray Wyatt. Like, they keep like going right up to the line with him, and then never push him over.
Yeah, with like him as a personality, and with the gimmick of like, are you some mystical, like, are you actually magic? Like, what are you? And then when they do some really dumb shit, like when Sister Abigail appeared, it's like, oh, then they just kind of forget about it for a long time. Whereas, like, Undertaker and Kane were fucking magic space wizards that were from either hell or whatever. There were Diablo. There was like the two like prime evils, and then just when the eras passed, then they're like, oh yeah, now I'm a guy in a business suit for a while. Oh wait, now I'm back in my see no evil person. Like, It's just so weird.
Do you remember when The Undertaker possessed Randy Orton?
Yes.
Live on television, Matt.
But yeah, live on television, but then like years later they'll be like, haha, remember when we did that stunt? Yeah. they'll then bury like really fun gimmicks. I remember when Undertaker fought against Brock Lesnar, Liam said the greatest thing in the world, which is the soul transfer. They're finally doing it. And that would have been so amazing. That's how you act. Like, I'm not sure if it would work on Brock Lesnar, but at Bray Wyatt or someone to that level, it's like if Undertaker can't go, fucking just say he transferred his soul into someone else, and that could be the new Undertaker.
It's funny, actually. Giant Bomb had Roman Reigns in for an interview. Like, this was kind of just before he was really starting to blow up, when people still kind of loved him.
Yeah.
And they actually pitched him the idea of if he did a soul transfer with The Undertaker, and that was Roman Reigns' gimmick now.
Roman Reigns, I could even see that with his hair.
I absolutely could, yeah.
And
like, he doesn't have to do that much.
He's not the biggest guy, but like in terms of like height or whatever, but like he still could do it. Like I could actually believe it a bit more than Brock Lesnar, just because Brock Lesnar's face and his voice just can't do it. So
his massive man body, tiny baby voice,
tiny baby legs. I still don't understand that. When I look at old footage of Brock Lesnar, like in 2002, and he's just actually the total package, not literally the total package, but like he was all buffed up and he looked proportionate, and now it's just he's fucking Gumby.
Yeah, he also hates wrestling.
That's true. God.
Did you ever see that Dan Riker interview with Brock Lesnar?
No, I'm not familiar.
Oh, Dan Reichert's like a giant bomb guy.
Yeah,
Into some EA thing, and Brock Lesnar is just like, yep, nope, yep, I haven't played the game, yep. It's just, he really does not want to be there.
Sorry, I have to go have sex with Sable now.
I can't.
Are they still together? I don't know.
I think so. I remember listening to a really sad Mark Merrow interview about he found out that Sable was cheating on him, and he got so mad, and he was like, I'm gonna find that guy and I'm gonna pound his ass. And then he found out it was Brock Lesnar, and he was like, you know what, it's fine.
You know what? I'll let him off the hook.
I'm just gonna let you off with a verbal warning this time, Brock.
That reminds me a lot of, again, I'll name drop OSW reviews, and they did a Sunny retrospective because they reviewed her porno to bloat the runtime of this video because they can only show so much. They're like, well, let's do a retrospective of Sunny Tammy Sitch's career. And one of the things is she was dating high school sweethearts with Chris Candido. And when Chris Candido showed up in the New Generation era as the Body Donnas, and she was his manager, she just started having an affair with Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels at this time it was like their only big star, right? It was just the only guy that had enough charisma that they could build anything around. So when Chris Candido found out, like, they'd be like, hey, where's Tammy? And they'd be like, oh, she's in Shawn's hotel room. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then she would have come home that night or go be with Chris Candido. And then Shawn would see him the next day. He's like, oh, yeah, thanks for sending Tammy over. And he could do nothing. He was like, oh, okay. No problem.
So sad.
No problem, Shawn. Because what are you supposed to do? Because in the era of WWE, especially around then, but even much later, you could get fired for smashing a pot. Like a flower pot, like Rhino got fired. Or you could be Randy Orton, who literally shits in people's like bags and don't get fired because he's that high on the totem pole. So
I have never understood Randy Orton. Like, I don't get why people like that guy.
I wasn't aware that they did.
Well, why does he have clout? That's kind of my question. Because like he is very good in the ring. Like, he is good, but like as a character, I've never seen anyone hyped about Randy Orton.
I think when he was the legend killer and had that gimmick for a little while where he was beating like legends in the ring, I think that was the only time where people got behind him, because that's a good gimmick to get heat. You know, just
that is a fun gimmick.
So, but then after that, I don't know how, especially since his character like barely evolves. The only time it looked like they would do something with him was when he joined the Wyatts. But of course, when all you really did was wear a black hoodie and not do anything else, like grow a beard or get gross or like, you know,
man, gross beardy Randy Orton. I could get behind that.
Right? It's because it'd be broken. Like, not broken, it'd be punished Randy Orton.
And, like, his ring attire could just be, like, a flour sack that's been badly knitted into pants.
It'd be such a great contrast compared to when he would come into the ring when he's in his casual wear, which is slacks and like a nice shirt or whatever, blah blah blah. Like just that era when, like Evolution, when he was always dressing very nicely and whatever. But like, more wrestlers need to have falls from graces, and not in terms of like their drawing ability, but in terms of their gimmick, where they're like, yeah, they're like it's a meme, but like I want to see punished versions of them.
I mean, oh man, one of my favorite wrestling promos ever is, or not promos, but like, the video packages they do?
Yes.
It was the one for Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, when like Bret Hart was beginning to shit all over the American fans and start like a heel turn. And it's like, Bret Hart used to be loved by everyone, but then after 6 months he returned to the business and his entire world had changed. And it shows like Bret, you make me puke signs, and him just like looking bewildered at the crowd. And then it's like, and it's all because of one man. And then like a musical cue hits, and it's like Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he's like, Bret Hart, you son bitch. And it's like, what would you do if the people who once cheered for you turned dramatically against you? I think there's like a bit in my wrestling video where I talk about that just for like 10 seconds, and it doesn't even belong in the fucking video. It's just me going, oh, and by the way, Bret, this thing happened, Bret Hart. And it's, then I just move on.
That's the other thing, is that like it's I can't expect them to do it, but it's like those types of video packages just don't really happen. It's just, it's the sound clips of, a couple announcers talking, a couple of snippets from promos in the ring, and it just doesn't happen often. And like they're scared to do it because it's such a dramatic shift from what they've been doing for like the last 15, almost 20 years now, where it's just like, no, we're sports entertainment. We're even more than that, where people would think that's silly, but I'm like, but then you actually have silly things happen in the ring all the time. Like, I don't know. It's such a weird. There's no other form of entertainment like this in the world. There really isn't.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. And like with those video packages in particular, and if you're not familiar with wrestling, what we're talking about is like before a big pay-per-view match, a lot of the time they'll play this like preview of like the history of the two wrestlers and why they're fighting. A lot of my favorite pieces of wrestling entertainment are just those video packages. Do you remember the one for, I think it was WrestleMania is either 15 or 17, between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock?
Yes.
And the theme song was Limp Bizkit's My Way.
Yeah.
I must have watched that, like, no joke, like 100 times.
Dude, it's the best.
If ever I feel low, if ever I need to get pumped, I'll stick that on. Then I'll be like, yeah, time to go back to talking about shitty anime.
You might as well get a syringe that just says 2001 and you're injecting it straight into your veins, because that's the era you're fucking in. But yeah, that
100%.
That one stands out like a lot. And around that Bret Hart time, I was there in attendance at the Montreal Screwjob.
Are you serious?
Yes, but
holy fucking shit.
But since this was pre-Titantron days, or just about, because this was in an older stadium in Montreal that I don't think gets used anymore for sporting events. I think I can't. I'm trying to remember, but it was in '97, and I'm in the nosebleed seats. I don't know what happened that night. I couldn't see.
Yeah, because from your angle, it must just have been confusing.
It was so confusing. So the only time I'd understand what was really happening was when everyone was leaving, and like that's when all the various tiers of seats would mix outside, and there'd be like, oh yeah, like Bret Hart like lost the title, and I was like, he did? Or how? Like he was, Sean was in a shirt. It makes no sense. No, something about this doesn't add up at all.
It's funny because like I remember like in Ireland's those pay-per-views would play at like 3 a.m, so you'd always just record them and watch them the next day.
Right.
And I watched it and I was like, what? For those of you who aren't familiar, I'll just briefly summarize. It's like the Montreal Screwjob is this really famous event in wrestling where Bret Hart, who was like one of the biggest stars at the time, was going up against Shawn Michaels, one of the other biggest stars, and Bret had kind of agreed with Vince and agreed with Shawn that he was going to win and he was going to drop the belts the next night on Raw, just give it up, because he didn't want to lose to Shawn Michaels, because Shawn Michaels refused to lose to him and a bunch of other guys. And so there was a lot of...
Brett specifically didn't want to lose the belt on Canadian soil. So the next Raw or whatever was going to be, in the US, and he's like, I just really don't want to drop it in front of like my home country, basically.
Yeah. But Vince McMahon, the manipulative wizard that he is, decided that he didn't trust... I guess that he didn't trust Brett, but...
yeah, I believe so.
So what they did was there was a moment in the match where Shawn was meant to get Brett in Brett's finishing move, the sharpshooter, which is a submission hold. And what was meant to happen was that Brett was meant to reverse it and that Shawn was going to tap out. But instead, when Shawn had Brett in the sharpshooter, they just rang the bell. Yeah. And just said, oh, he tapped out, title Shawn's. And I can remember watching that, and I was like the biggest Bret Hart fan. Like, I loved Bret Hart.
I've noticed you totally are.
Yeah, he's like me, very little personality, but we do what we do well.
I knew you'd say that about Bret Hart, man. Don't sell yourself that short. But yeah,
no, it's all right. I know.
Bret Hart, charisma vacuum. A vampire of charisma. He will suck the charisma out of the room, and it goes nowhere. Like, the charisma just stays locked. But yes, one of the greatest in-ring technicians of all time, certainly.
And I think that's what actually stopped me watching wrestling for a long time, because I was just so like appalled that he lost, and I was like, he'd never tap out. And then I found out he was going to WCW, and I was like, what? And like, that actually made me just drop it. I was like, well, fuck this. And then I also had a really traumatic incident where like I was like I was a bit of a slow child. I was like 11 years old, and I still believed wrestling was real. And so like my entire class would be like, no, John, it's fake. And I'd be sitting there,
it's real to me, like, damn it,
being like, no, it's not. And then the fucking teacher, like the teacher was like, boys, John, it is fake. And I was like, no. And I went home that day and I was like, Dad, is it fake? And he was like, well, it's not real. And I was like, damn it,
you all lied to me.
And that was horrible. So yeah,
I don't know where my sort of thing, like the point in time where I was like, yeah, there's something about this that's not quite on the level, actually. I think though, like throughout the years, when I'd watch like WF Superstars or whatever, like even before Raw, because Raw was something that only came about when we got sports channels on my TV at home. But WF would have Superstars that would play on like local channels on Saturdays or whatever. And I'd be watching that, and my dad would always occasionally say, look at these son of a bitches. They're not hitting each other. But then someone will do some off the ropes type move that, had a great impact to him. My dad's like, but Jesus, though, how'd they do that? So I'd get mixed messages. So I think what I thought was that, like, punches were always fake, but everything else was real. Like, in my head, I'm like, because in boxing, like, boxing's so quick because they can only take so many hits and then they fall down because you get punched in the face. It usually hurts a bunch. So in wrestling, to make it more entertaining, they just have these like little fun fake punches for fun. And then they beat each other with the big moves, I used to call them. Like finishers? No, I called them the big moves.
I like that better. I wish they'd start saying that at the commentary.
The big dog with the big move.
Yeah, my girlfriend kind of got recently into New Japan a little bit, and we were watching a pay-per-view, and JR came on for the first time, and she'd never heard him, and JR was just doing his absolute maximum, my God, he's killed him, he's killed him, and she was like enraptured. She was like, this is fantastic.
No, he's still to me the greatest commentator of all time. Like, he's not really the best anymore in terms of his like current commentary, just because like, you just can't, like, even if you're an announcer to a performer in the ring, like, age does catch up with you and you're just not as quick-witted. Hey, it goes for YouTubers super well, because I'm really on the decline, but in general though, like, even I think the only person that really kept up their game was like Lillian Garcia as like a voice. as like
Yeah,
a
she's
singer and a
fantastic.
ring announcer. It's the only one that really kind of seemed to keep the talent.
Going back just about to like I guess the illusion of wrestling getting shattered. My friend actually told me an amazing story about his granddad. Um, he's my friend Manoj is like he's of Indian descent, I guess, and his grandfather grew up in India and was like from this extremely rich, very well educated family, and he like was a fully trained doctor and like highly regarded medical professional, huge wrestling fan, absolutely massive, and so his granddad would like he very well respected person in the community, but massively into wrestling, and he would watch it on like this little tiny black and white TV, which was like the only kind of TVs around at that time,
Right.
and took it so seriously. Like I think and he even had like stat sheets for them all and everything.
Oh, jeez.
And then so finally he took a holiday to America and like went to a live wrestling show. And within 5 minutes of the first match, he was like, "This is fake." Because like he couldn't tell on the shitty television that it was, but when he got there in real life, he was like, "Oh my god."
Jeez, that's an eye opener.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
What a downer of a story. And that man never watched wrestling again.
I don't think he did. I think it broke his heart.
It was his Bret Hart losing the title moment.
That was my Montreal Screwjob.
It screwed me over.
Man,
John didn't. We didn't screw John over. John screwed himself over.
Man, all I can think now is like watching like I don't know a Metal Gear Solid game and Snake turning to Raiden and be like, "Give it up, Raiden. This is our Montreal Screwjob."
It's the Vince McMahon is on the board of the Patriots or whatever.
Anyway, but our Metal Gear Solid fan fiction is to come at a later date.
Right.
We'll keep the lid on that one for the moment, Matt. Okay.
Yeah. The WrestleMania I mentioned before, I was saying I was holding on to this. So this was the WrestleMania where for the first 2 hours, like this is like starting from the pre-show, which is again one of like the worst things ever, is just having these 2 hour long pre-shows attached to like an already 4 hour long show. Like I can't think of how many people nowadays I see, and people that whose job is to cover these events, like Matthew or people from like Wrestling with Regret or any of those channels. They're just like, I can't, especially if you're in the UK because you're watching it like 4 a.m. And they just can't do it, and they're like, I'll have to watch it tomorrow. Like I gotta go to bed. But like at that WrestleMania, the first 2 hours of the show had no one in the stands. Because, if I explain this a bit more, you might like, oh, right, I heard about that. It's like this show, this was at the AT&T or whatever center, another, telecommunications company that owned the arena, and all their electronic scanners for tickets went down.
Jesus.
So in the Texas heat, I mean, it was only April then, I think, so it wasn't the hottest day in the world, but it was like, 20 degrees, whatever that is for Americans. But there were reports that people were starting to faint in the lines because no one was being let in because people were outside for like a long, long time. Because they should have let people in like an hour ago and everyone's like, the pre-show is starting and no one's in the arena yet. Because they had no way to scan. I don't know how it happened, but basically, me and the group that I was with, Team 4-Star, were let in about at the end of the Intercontinental ladder match, just as I think it was Zack Ryder won. And we were finally let in just as he was like holding up the belt. So we missed the entire pre-show, I think a match before this, and most of the Intercontinental ladder match, which is like, I would like to see that. If my favorite wrestler, a ladder, is involved, I would always want to see him compete. So
they need to push the ladder more.
As we were walking into the arena and we just saw the massive like sizes, because again this is 100,000 seater, I'm like, oh right. I have to preface this by saying right before we got to the turnstiles where they're finally letting in, they're like, all bags and all purses have to be thrown in the trash.
What?
So
Jesus.
once we got to the area of the line, after like many hours of waiting, we see a sign that says like all bags and all purses must be thrown away. Not like throw away your bottles of water because they want to screw you over on water and sell you, shit. It was, we don't care. Your bags are going in the trash. I had a fantastic Zelda messenger bag that I love dearly, and I threw it away because they're like, yeah, throw away your bag. And this is right before we get into the turnstiles. Everyone's really angry. Everyone wants to get in. And I'm just going through my bag and I'm grabbing everything I can out of it. And I'm just like, yeah, here it is. And then I see women throwing out like, expensive purses. One of the Team 4-star guys has said, oh, this holds my insulin, even though it didn't. And they're like, oh, it holds your insulin? Like, yeah, okay, you can keep your bag then. So he's like, ha ha ha. So he was able to keep his bag. But of course, me being stupid, I didn't think of anything like that. As we're walking in the arena, and I'm like, sucks I lost that bag, but whatever, I can get another. And I'm patting myself down a bit. I go, oh, my passport was in that bag.
Oh.
And I just go, holy shit, I'm stuck in Texas forever. And I turn to the guys, and I'm like, very calmly, because if I'm by myself, I can freak out. But if there's friends and stuff, and like, I don't want to worry everybody, but I just say really calmly, I think my passport was in my bag. Guys, sit down, enjoy the, like, everyone just enjoy the show. I'll be back once I figure this out. It's fine. We've already missed so much that I don't want you guys to miss it further. So one of them is like Kieran, who does a lot of the gaming stuff on Team 4-star, was just like, no, man, I'm going to go with you. You need help. Don't worry. I'll go with you. I'm like, no. And he's like, no, I insist. And he runs ahead anyway. So I'm like, fuck. So basically we had to dig through a gigantic dumpster of everyone's food, everyone's water bottles, drinks, and all their bags. And I'm asking like the workers, like, I left my bag. Oh my God, I had my passport. Like, oh. And they're like, oh, okay, we're really sorry. And yeah, we found my bag. Yes, my passport was in it. And I was just like, holy shit. Thanks, Russ. That's my WrestleMania moment.
Okay, Matt, like, with that story in mind, like, is WrestleMania good? Because, like, I love wrestling. I have, like, every story I hear about attending WrestleMania live kind of sounds like a nightmare.
So this is the only one I've ever attended. The one I've so eloquently described. How about how much fun it was? After all that was a WrestleMania where all of my preferred performers, either heel or face, they all lost. Like, I really wanted Sasha Banks to win that one. She didn't. I really wanted... God, did AJ even win? I don't even remember if AJ won. No, it wasn't AJ versus Shane. It was AJ versus Jericho, I think.
Oh, I think he lost that.
Yeah, then if he lost that, then, like, yeah, I really wanted AJ to win. Because, again, at that same New Japan versus Ring of Honor show I went to in Nakamura, AJ was there, too. So that was the first time I ever saw AJ live. Like, I was familiar with him from his days in TNA, but, like... So when AJ finally came over, when he had his Royal Rumble debut that year, I was like, oh my God, he's so fucking cool. I want to have his babies and whatever. And so every single match I was really anticipating, like every single person lost. So that's just on me. But because of all the troubles earlier.
That's what you get for believing in things.
That's what I get. All of the troubles, like it led to me being disappointed, like in general, but just the pageantry of it and like the general scope of it, the entrances that are pumped to 11, it is definitely a spectacle to behold, but is it worth the, like, especially for a live audience, the actual 7 hours you have to be like either standing or sitting on uncomfortable little like folding chairs and not being with a bunch of friends, watching it at home, eating pizza and just, having the full reign of wherever you're staying at? Like, I'm not sure if it's worth it to see a live.
Because like I've been to one WWE event before, and it was like the main event was Mark Henry versus The Undertaker. And
I mean,
like this was a dark show.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, what pay-per-view is this? But yeah, okay.
This was, sorry, no, this was not a pay-per-view. This was just a show that happened in Ireland, and like you could really tell everyone was kind of like maybe their mentality was this isn't getting broadcast on TV, so it does not matter. And it like literally the Mark Henry Undertaker match. Mark Henry did 3 hip tosses on the Undertaker. The Undertaker chokeslam and tombstoned him. Match over. And it was just like, wow, guys.
You're like, wow, amazing.
And like I brought my girlfriend at the time. It was just still my girlfriend. We're just like engaged now. And I kind of afterwards I was like, yeah, wrestling's cooler than that. And she was like, right. And I was like, damn. But then like on the opposite side of it, one of the best pay-per-views I ever went to, this really amazing crowd in Dublin called OTT.
Mm-hmm.
And they're an indie wrestling promotion. They're basically like an Irish indie. They're basically like an Irish indie ECW, and they're just fucking fantastic.
Cool.
So if anyone's living in Dublin, go to those shows. I go to them regularly, so I might even be at one. But there was another really good one, and I just loved it because it was the most pitch perfect heel promo I'd ever seen in the ring, just addressing the audience. This was in Dublin as well. It was in this little basketball arena, and it was an early TNA show, and they had like AJ Styles, they had the Motor City Machine Guns,
Nice.
They had Abyss, they had all these people. But the Motor City Machine Guns come out and they just go, you know what? We gotta say, it's great to be back in good old England. And the fucking audience just erupted with boos. It was so perfect.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's the kind of wrestling show I like. And I don't know how much I'd get out of a WrestleMania, just because I know I'd lose the intimacy and stuff like you're saying about the... when you saw them, I can't believe you saw the Montreal Screwjob. Holy shit! But like,
I kind of did.
Saying,
I kind of did.
Yeah. That's the thing. You kind of saw it, and like, I like seeing the camera angles and like seeing the wrestlers' expressions and stuff like that. And yeah.
You're definitely gonna lose that when you contrast it against an intimate, like, either a house show or like a homegrown promotion where the crowd is rabid. You can hear every fan. Like there always is an intimacy to that. And like I unless you're like front row seat, which I couldn't imagine how much that costs at WrestleMania, or even like just a couple of rows back, like, yeah, you're always going to lose it because they always want to have it in the giant arenas because you make more money, because it's WrestleMania. It's where you're going to get all the paydays. So, yeah, I mean, unless you're like actually planning to go in the U.S., it's like I can't think of the last major pay-per-view that they even had in like England or Ireland or Scotland or anywhere that you can easily go to. So yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the last thing I can even remember was like they did a SummerSlam in England back in like 93 or 92.
I think they might have, yeah.
There's been pay-per-views since then, but like they were like kind of Capital Carnage or something like that that were later in the Attitude Era, but like a major pay-per-view that you'd want to go see, like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen. And I certainly wouldn't ever say like travel to the US for one.
No, I don't think I ever would. Like, I'd be much more likely to travel for a New Japan show at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Matt, what say we take a little break?
Sure.
Diggity dog. Diggity dog.
And we're back, Matt.
Diggity dog.
Oh man, that's I still think that's like a fucking 10 out of 10 game.
No.
WWE No Mercy for the N64. Like, I was so hyped for that game for months, and then it came out and like it met my expectations. It was.
I remember being
fantastic.
at a store yelling at a cashier, like, "Where is it?" Because it was supposed to be out that day, and like there was an empty spot on the rack where I'm like, that's where it should be. And he's like, yeah, we haven't brought them out yet. I'm like, where is it? But No Mercy is a 10 out of 10 game, but it's actually like more like I'd say like an 8 out of 10 game for one simple reason. and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but like, yeah, there is, and I saw it firsthand, the dreaded No Mercy, like, lose all your saves and data bug.
Oh yeah,
That
I remember
happens. That happens fairly frequently. When I was with some friends, 2 years ago, he had created everybody on the Creator Wrestler, and then he just popped in the game, like all his data was gone, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
My God.
Like, I had heard of this bug, but to actually see it happen, I'm like, "No, that sucks. That's a technical one of the saddest things. We talked about this a bit before, not on this podcast, but like, No Mercy is so amazing, and it's just they will never re-release these old games, like never.
No, never.
I don't know if they're. I don't know if it's because it's like, well, we don't want to look back at that era. Like WWE's like, no, got to have our new sim games every year, or it's like they legally can't because of THQ. I don't know, but.
And then there's other weird stuff as well, like Chris Benoit is in that game, and it's like, who, you know?
Why? What do you mean?
No reason.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was such a fantastic game. Me and a friend of mine. This is. I think this is cool, but every time I tell it, people are like, "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." Me and my friend would set up like, you could make pay-per-views in that game.
Yep.
So we'd make an entire pay-per-view and set everyone to computer and watch them fight and commentate over it. It was really fun. No one believes me, but it was good.
No, that's totally cool. I mean, fucking EA does that every year where they just sim the large football match. What's it called? The Super Bowl. They sim it out to see, whoa, we have all the accurate stats, and we're gonna, it's the same thing. And
that sounds exactly like the same thing.
But
to the point that I feel that
yours
I'm
is
going
cooler.
to notify my lawyers.
Yeah,
Mine's
do.
way cooler. Mine's wrestling.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone tell you
Thank
different,
you.
John.
You know what? I think I might not from now on.
Do a stream of that. Make your coyote eyeglasses pay-per-view. I'll watch that. I'll sub to that.
Dog monocle.
Monocle. That's the. I was trying to think of what some other dumb eye shit.
Monocle dog. Binoculars hound.
Superlative.
Okay, Matt.
Yes.
We have some questions from the wonderful world of Twitter.
Fantastic.
Okay, the first one. What would your entrance music be, and what is the best wrestler? What is the best entrance music? Okay, maybe let's start with that second one first, because that's easier.
Yeah.
And I kind of think like the fucking Undertaker. Like, I can't think of any other wrestling music where like the first note of it, I get like a chill.
Yeah, because it's just the sound effect, really.
Bong. Yeah, it's I love that song.
I'd say you gotta pick at least like 3. Like, because you can't. I mean, you can say the Undertaker, and I won't disagree with you. But I'm like, there's too many. But like, I would say like the Ultimate Warrior's theme is high up there in terms of getting an instant reaction. And
yeah,
I'd say
because it just kicks in.
Yes,
and it's going like.
I'd say Jericho's theme is up there.
Yeah.
God.
Nakamura's most recent
Nakamura, like it,
yeah,
and
fucking fantastic.
I didn't think they could get another all-time greatest sort of theme could be in the running, like in the modern era. Like
Bobby Roode's is pretty good.
There's certainly good ones, but like when Nakamura's is like on a slightly higher level where it's like, yeah, we have to one up the entrance every time with all these musicians and orchestras and shit. Like there's very few themes that like kind of had that sort of treatment, but
yeah, I wonder what they're gonna do with that now that he's a heel.
I don't know.
Because it's such a face theme.
Because it'll always be over in a positive way.
Yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes I think that it's even when Chris Jericho turned heel, like when he was corporate Chris Jericho, people still would cheer him. If you have so much charisma, it's hard to get away, especially like your theme, But I also sorry, really quickly, CM Punk's like Cult of Personality, like that was also a really good one. Like it wasn't created specifically for him, but
what do you think of CM Punk, man?
What I think, I love Punk dearly. Like
absolutely, I really love Punk, and like
For a number of years...
I think what he did was fucking cool.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. For a number of years when he was just kind of starting in WWE, I was like, eh. But that's because he didn't really have much to do. They didn't really let him do all that much. But, you know, I grew to like, oh, just he's going to save wrestling and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
Not to shit on anyone else's contributions and how hard they worked, but yeah, he was just a breath of fresh air. And I'm like sad things went the way they did, and probably will remain. Like I also never thought Bret Hart would ever come back and shake Vince's hand and all that. So you never know, but I kind of think Punk is more of a will actually hold grudges a lot longer, even if money is on the table. You know?
Yeah, totally. And like I thought his whole UFC thing was good. Like he got his ass kicked, and I think that's fine. Like I think he was okay with that happening, and it's like I really respect him for trying.
Yeah,
because who the fuck does that?
I liked his. I'm not sure if he's actively doing it, but like the couple times he's written for Marvel Comics, I thought was really cool, because I'm like, he probably loves that.
I'd say so.
You know, in terms of themes, again, I just want to throw a few more out there, like Degeneration X's original
classic.
Fucking loved it. Undertaker,
Stone Cold's was amazing. Undertaker
Rollin', of course, high up there. American,
not even greatest team, but just greatest piece of music.
Yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin, especially like for me, like when he had Disturbed do their like metal version of it.
Oh yeah,
love that.
That was on was that on the WWE Aggression album?
I believe so.
Because I remember they released this like hardcore rap album, and I thought I was pretty tough walking around.
You were. There was the rap one, then there was the metal one. Like one was called like Aggression, and the other one was called like, was it Forcible Entry or whatever? A really bad name that they had.
Sounds like a little bit of a Vince Russo decision right there.
Yeah, that he might not have been around at that time, but his stylistic choices might have remained.
Oh God, actually, sorry, I just remembered real quick. I watched an interview just about like old WCW stuff, and they had this guy called Disco Inferno.
Yeah, I know him.
And Disco Inferno would always pitch these crazy wrestling ideas, like crazy ideas for storylines, and one of them, no shit, was a Martian invasion.
Well, especially WCW around the time, it's like throw whatever on the wall and let's see what sticks, you know? So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, listening to like, I think Vince Russo was recently on Stone Cold's podcast. That guy is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, as for wrestler themes, I always thought the Dudleys one was really cool. Like
which one?
I think they're kind of original with the bomb dropping.
The one that had rap in it, or no?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no. Theirs was also really good.
I mean, fucking Triple H's ones.
Triple H has a lot. Like everyone just goes to Motorhead, but even his ones like pre Motorhead are really, really good.
Yeah, like the one where there's kind of like Tarzan yodeling at the start. That was really cool as well.
Wait, which one is this?
It's like this would have been like around 2000, and I can't think of any better way to describe it than that. I will link it to you at some point.
Okay,
I'll stick it in the description.
Okay, please do. I think the Four Horsemen theme from WCW is really good. It's just, you know, a bunch of like horses just neighing, and they're like being reined in. Then you hear this like Joe Satriani style guitar. Like WCW notorious for really shitty knockoff themes. Of course, DDP's fucking Smells Like Teen Spirit ripoff. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And NWO theme in general, like everyone knows it. And it's one of their few like original themes from WCW. So
Matt, if you were a wrestler, what would your theme be?
The menu music from WWF No Mercy.
You could do a shitty little dance.
Good. I'm great at those. But yeah, no, that'd be very meta to come out to that. You know, that'd be my gimmick. My gimmick would be I'm a wrestler that loves WWF No Mercy, and I'm always playing it in the ring and shit. And I have it like on like a little portable N64, and I'm always referencing it.
And it'd be stuff like you're about to win the title, but your opponent's manager like hooks up the N64 and like starts tempting you with a controller.
And I'm trying to like get WWF, like, because remember when Punk was like, bring back the icicle pops, bring back the ice cream set, like that, bring back No Mercy. That's what I'd fucking do. Oh, that's fucking money.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But yeah, like that's my joke answer. I'll see if I can think of a real one, but you go ahead.
That's pretty real to me, dude.
Okay.
Honestly, for me, I think like I've always liked the idea of a heel wrestler who like he's such a snaky little fucker. He never actually wrestles, but he wins most of his matches. So like he'll sabotage his opponent's car, so they never show up at the arena. So he wins by default, and it just keeps building and building and building like that. And my theme would just be crowd booing noises, so that so that it just really seems like everybody fucking hates me so much. Like, just the moment I walk out, there's no music and the boos just erupt. I would love that.
The problem with that is that I laughed, which means it's entertaining, so people would probably cheer.
That's why the boos.
That's why they're important. There. Okay. And you have to turn them up on the sound speakers so it drowns out the cheers.
And like he'd be such a shitty little heel. Like I'd like to have like I've been thinking about this for years, where like I'd love to do a thing where he's meant to be facing someone, but his opponent like gets in an accident and has to go to the hospital, and he acts really concerned, and he drives to the hospital.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh no, are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Okay, guys, give us a minute. Give us a minute." He clears everyone out of the room. And then a referee rolls out from under the hospital bed, and he just puts his hands on him, and it's 1, 2, 3, and that's how he wins the title.
Oh, so what you've described, I think this happens in vignettes and promos throughout the years, little bits of this, but there's not like a cohesive entity that has built I do remember a WCW match where Mark Marrow couldn't come to compete because his car fell apart. But one of the wrestlers that he was facing or something did that to him, but that was a one-time affair. So to have like a being that this is their main strength, and like Fandango when he used to come out and like, you got my name wrong, so I'm not wrestling, and match is just over. Like, they could only do that for so long, but then they just stopped, So to have someone that constantly comes up with different shit, because Fandango just did the same thing over and over.
Like, basically a Looney Tunes villain.
Yes.
Who except never actually wrestles. But then can you imagine, like, the pop at WrestleMania when, like, The Undertaker got his hands on him? Like, it would be so good.
Yeah. Would you have a mustache and you would tweak it?
I would start without a mustache, and the longer it went on, it would grow and grow and grow.
Because that sounds like something the Vaudevillains would have done, and they didn't really go like full hog with the gimmick, and now the Vaudevillains are like not really there anymore, really. But
yeah, okay, we got another question here. What do you think of Ronda Rousey? Yeah, she's cool. Next question. I was super impressed with Ronda Rousey's debut. I think kind of everyone was. I think a lot of people expected that match to be a shit show.
I think they did a few things leading up to WrestleMania that actually made people lower their expectations, but then surprised, because especially when they put out that press release from around the Rumble where they're like, Ronda Rousey will appear at every Raw leading to WrestleMania, and then they quietly deleted that article when she missed like almost all of them or whatever. But I liked her gear in ring. I still don't know why we're raiding Roddy Piper's corpse of his shit and slapping it on her. I know she's like a fan, but she doesn't need it. She's Ronda Rousey. She's already famous. I don't know why they're doing that so much with her.
So here's what I think happened there. I think like she is a huge Rowdy Roddy Piper fan, and
Yeah.
I think she even knew. I think she might have known him when she was little, and so she comes into an office and she's like, "This is my gimmick," and they're like, "Yes, ma'am."
That's probably really accurate, but okay, if that's all her creation, then yeah, I can't really give out about that. But it's just like you can only ride that for so long, and if she wants to be taken like even more seriously going into the future, you can't rely so much. I think Charlotte Flair does it pretty well, where it's like
I love Charlotte.
have
Yeah.
the bit of Ric Flair's theme at the start, then it goes into the remix. And it works a bit better there because, of course, it's like, she's his daughter, but Ronda Rousey's not related to, as far as we know, related to Roddy Piper. So I find it like a little weirder, but her actual gear when she's fighting in ring, I was like, oh, that looks cool. That makes sense. She's got the gloves and whatever.
Yeah.
That's my only thing. I'm not even mentioning this as a negative, really. I just find it a little strange. She doesn't really need it, but if she really wants to, yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am. Well, like why?
Right away, Miss Rousey.
Yes, exactly. But yeah,
We have someone digging up Roddy Piper's coffin as we speak.
yeah, like actually, like it's a lot of pressure to have your actual in-ring debut in a match to be at WrestleMania, and you did that well. Like it was impressive.
Yeah. I think like my favorite moment of WrestleMania was just her fucking unloading on Triple H. I thought that looked so like legit, and it looked so painful, and like I never thought I would see that, like Ronda Rousey and Triple H squaring off in a ring. Like that was kind of magical, I thought. And like I have a secret hope that I know will never come true, but I would love like the next WrestleMania it was Ronda Rousey versus Triple H. Never happen. But man, that would draw so well, and I would fucking love to see it.
I mean, you're right in terms of entertainment value, but I'd rather see her just fight Asuka at that point.
Yeah, that's the other. And like this kind of leads into our next question a little bit. What do you think they should do with Asuka now that she's lost the streak?
I talked to you a bit about this beforehand about Asuka in general, and I was like, I'm not a fan of her tapping to lose. Yeah. I'm fine with her losing. Everyone has to lose at some point. Would I have preferred her to win? Yes. But, just like you said before, like I don't see Asuka wearing her own merch to the ring, like, or whatever. It doesn't fit her character. Yeah. And I find tapping doesn't fit her character either. Because a tapping is a decision you have to make. You don't have a decision to lay down on the ground and be knocked out because of the impact of a move. So that I still like, I know Charlotte, her move is the figure four, so it makes sense. But at the same time, like any number of moves could have knocked Asuka out, and I would have been a fan of that. But in terms of what to do with her from now on, I don't know.
I think there's a fight. You're a big Ippo fan, aren't you, Matt?
Yes, I am.
There's a fight in Ippo in the first season where he fights that the Grim Reaper guy with the what's his name again?
The Hitman style.
Yeah, Hitman
Mashiba.
Yeah, and like Ippo beats Mashiba. But even when he's like getting 10 counted out, Mashiba's crawling across the ring because he wants to keep fighting Ippo. And like even though Ippo wins, it totally sells Mashiba as this like fucking monster still.
Do you know
that's the kind of way I would have loved to see Asuka lost.
They should have Bret Hart Stone Cold it. Where Asuka just faints. She never taps, but she still loses. Because it keeps her really strong.
I think I even could have accepted tapping a little easier if we'd had another, say, 5 to 10 minutes to that match, because it felt
a little
like
short.
I felt like Asuka kicked the shit out of Charlotte for 14 minutes and then she tapped.
Yeah.
And it just made her feel a little weaker than I would have liked. I don't have a problem with her losing because it had to happen eventually. As for what's coming, what I would love to see is for Asuka to disappear for a couple of months and then come back and absolutely like destroy Charlotte, like
Yeah.
squash her, and from there you just build her up as the unbeatable one again, and then you build her into a feud with Rousey. That's the way I would love to see that go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd throw my hat on that as the next, ideal build, but like,
We're both gonna sign off on that, Matt.
yeah, I'd say so.
Okay,
but
I'll send the letter to WWE. and
yeah,
let them know.
because you have that direct line to them, and
Yeah.
I mean, if you do, tell
Well,
them to
I'm
bring
ju- I'm
back
just-
No Mercy.
I'm just assuming that they watch both our channels. Like,
Well, yeah.
I'm sure Vince McMahon is an avid anime and Let's Play watcher.
Yeah, I want to see these guys bumble through Sharp Effie.
Matt McMuscles and Eyepatch Wolf in a steel cage match. Matt, how did we get here?
You destroy me. You fucking trained a little bit. Like, holy Christ! I would just
Don't worry.
I would just take your fucking gimmick of like cheating somehow.
Don't worry, Matt. It's not real. We'll tell a story as well.
we'll make movies.
Yep. yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, I think there's still a lot they can do with Asuka because
Yeah.
Asuka herself is so fucking talented.
Yeah.
But I really hope they do her justice, and I hope that Rousey hasn't taken Asuka's spot.
I certainly don't think yet or now or in the foreseeable future, but like it is a worry that long term she would take her spot as being this like unbeatable person, because as good as Asuka is, she's not as famous unfortunately as Ronda Rousey, so I could see them trying to more capitalize on that. But ideally, Charlotte's been the champ for a while now. She's been like the head of the women's division for like a long time now, and they tried to have a couple people take her down. They tried things with Bayley, they tried things with Sasha. It didn't really. Now they're kind of lower on the totem pole like for a little while now, and Asuka was there, and I was going into it, I was like, oh, she's got to win. So
I was sure she was gonna win.
Because
yeah.
as the problem is that like Charlotte's a great heel, and there's not really another. I mean, they're trying to make some other ones, but she's just heads and shoulders above everyone else in terms of being a really overall great heel persona, and like they don't really have anybody.
I like honestly, I think she's like quite possibly the best heel of the company right now. Like I think she's fantastic.
Yeah. No, she is.
Yeah. Okay, final question. When and how did you realize you were into wrestling?
I think my dad took me to see a house show. God.
Sounds like your dad has a real mixed relationship with wrestling.
Yeah. This was like, this had to be really early on. This had to be like, I'm thinking in my head about who was there. Like Brutus, the Barber Beefcake was there. That's the only guy I remember being on the card. Maybe Macho Man, maybe Jake the Snake. So this had to be like 91, 92, maybe. Hope I got my dates right. That they weren't like released from the company at that time. But yeah, I remember going there, and I just have a few flashes of memory about what it was. But I just remember being so excited and so blown away. And then like a car ride home. And that's like my earliest wrestling memory where I can just be.
Wow, that's really cute. That's cool.
And aside from that, like, yeah, I think that's it. But like after that, it was kind of like not much going on until, oh shit, there's a pay-per-view happening at in Montreal. Like, oh, I gotta go. And up until here, I was watching it a little bit casually. It was on every so often. And then once we got like those aforementioned sports channels where they would play Monday Night Raw every Monday, that's when I really, really got into it. But in terms of like having an overall interest, yeah, I'd say that house show from like 92.
Yeah. I have been into wrestling longer than I have conscious memory. I don't have any memory of not liking it.
You're
like, it's just all
you Irish whipped out of your mom.
Yep.
Who threw you? Anyway.
Secrets of the businessman.
Yeah.
And so like I don't remember. I remember falling out of wrestling after the screw job and like that humiliating classroom incident. I really think the teacher should have just left it as quiet down, boys. Like she didn't need to be like, John, it's not real. Like that was. You know what? Yeah, I don't approve of that.
Please, John, you're scaring the children.
But then I remember like years later. This is super lame, but this is what I was like as a teenager. Like I was about like 14 or 15 and I was like, no, wrestling's stupid, I hate it. And then one of my friends was like, yeah, but check out this girl, and he showed me like the cover of like King of the Ring 98 I think, and like Sable was on it, and I was like, whoa. And so then he convinced me to like watch a pay-per-view with him, and like we got pizza, and it was just really fun and weird and good. And I don't think Sable is actually in that pay-per-view. I felt cheated. But like it was, it just seemed like, so because this was like full on Attitude Era, and like, you know, Attitude Era was fucking made for like teenagers filled with hormones, and it was just I was just entranced by it, and I was like, this is crazy, and like, you know, like when
how is this legal?
Yeah. And like I remember he'd be like, okay, you want to see something crazy, and he pulls out a videotape, and it was the clip of like, I think it was, you remember Kai and Tai? They had some weird kind of faction. It was the clip of them like cutting off Val Venus's penis with a katana.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And at the time I was like, wrestling's so hardcore. And like people can look that up on YouTube if you don't believe me. That clip is real. You know what? I'll link that in the description as well.
You got the idea in your head that like, I shouldn't be watching this. It's so like hardcore, and like, oh, I'm like, you know, it's like playing Mortal Kombat without your mom knowing or some shit. So
totally.
I distinctly remember that bit because they had a feud with Val Venus, and like he was in the ring, and they took out like a sausage out on the like near the entrance ramp, and they're like. They did their like pretty racist gimmick where one of them just shouting "Choppa choppa yo pee pee," and they do that. And but then later on, like in like whatever a few weeks later, they actually kind of mimicked that they were actually doing it to Val Venus in the ring. Like they got his hands on him. I think someone might have saved him, but he got nicked by the sword. I don't know.
It was a backstage segment where the camera just goes into the room, and Val Venus is like bare ass, like pants down, away from the camera, and they scream the super racist thing again, and then they lower the katana, and then it just cuts.
Yeah.
But then later on in the night, a commentator was like, "We've received word that due to shrinkage, Val Venus's member like slipped away from the sword." And what I like about that is that like if they were really gonna cut off his dick, like that happened, and they were like, well, you know what, we gave it our best, and then they let him go.
like you were almost there, you almost beat him, you almost got him, but
And so like a lot of Attitude Era shenanigans like that definitely brought me back. Like, you know, looking back now, that stuff's, you know, looking back now, I realized that bra and panties matches, maybe not such a great thing. Maybe women's wrestling has come a long way, and I'm very thankful for that. But back fucking then, I was like, oh my god.
This is the height of athletic entertainment.
The height of athletic entertainment crossed with eroticism. And it was...
Erotic, yes.
It was kind of bad, but it was kind of magical in its own stupid way. It was like, yeah, DX.
A product of its time.
A product of its time.
Yeah. And when they do those things, like at Raw 1000s or 25th anniversaries or whatever, and they try to do it again, it is pretty cringy. Like whatever it was, the 30th anniversary of Raw or whatever it was recently, the 25th, I forget now. The one from a couple of like months back. And they tried to have all of DX in the ring, and they're all like these sad grandpas now, and it's just it just doesn't work. And they think that's what people want to see, and then they'll bury like, who did they bury? Not DIY. The other
Was it the Ascension? No, I don't.
no
think so.
the other tag team that's like two athletic guys and they're just good. Not American Alpha.
I can't remember.
Anyway,
fuck.
it's when they had it in the ballroom and then they had them come out and just all of DX did all of their big moves to them.
Yeah.
And just buried them. I'm like, well, yeah, I like to see the old guys, but don't fucking use them to destroy current talent when it's just for a one-off show for laughs, you know? And a lot of people at that show weren't laughing because they were so angry that they paid so much money to watch 2 matches and had to watch the rest of Raw from the other arena on TVs.
Yeah, and even like stuff that was like magical back then, like it just does not fit the current stuff. Like if anytime I see Rock do a like when The Rock comes back, like, you know, once or twice a year and does a promo, I'm always like, oh, this doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe he's gotten worse, but I think it's not that era anymore, you know?
It's either they have to change the entire product, like the entire era that we're in, change it across the board so that everything kind of fits, so when these things do happen, they don't stick out that much. Or it's like, have The Rock maybe, I don't know, do new things. It's fine to see The Rock there, but like just saying the same catchphrase, like you can get a few away. You can get, I'll give you, you know, 1 or 2 WrestleManias or whatever. But if you keep bringing him back, especially if you ever bring him back for a match, God forbid, and he tears up all of his muscles again, like he did with John Cena, it's so weird because it's such a frustrating product to watch sometimes, but you know how good it can be, but you're not exactly sure what can be done overall.
I think mild frustration is a big part of being a WWE fan. Everyone all the time is just, if they just
Yeah. Like, some calls are easy to make. Some calls, someone you can point to, like, just this or that, and you can go, yes. And that can help. Yeah. But as an overall stylistic change, like, no one has all the answers. They just have to naturally come to it. But, like, no one trusts them to naturally come to some, like, new type of, like, attitude to have or mantra in which to guide the entire company. Maybe not until Vince dies.
Yeah, yeah.
And even then.
And, like, that's the kind of other side of it as well. Like, it is so easy to fantasy book when, like, you don't have to think about things like contracts and injuries and egos and this wrestler will do this and won't do this and, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think even at its worst, it's always kind of fascinating.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
like,
for
I'm
sure.
always, and I think that's kind of the strength of it in a lot of ways and why people still like it.
Like I said before, there's no other form of entertainment that's like this, so.
No, absolutely not. Matt, that feels like a pretty fantastic note to end on, I think.
I think so as well, John.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. This was a ton of fun, Matt.
Yeah.
And, you know, thanks so much for agreeing to do this. This was super cool.
No problem. My pleasure. If you ever just want to do like 2 hours just talking about No Mercy memories or Aki Engine games in general, I'd totally be down.
We would probably need far more than 2 hours.
Yeah, probably.
But yes, let's get on that.
I even talk about all my OCs from WWF No Mercy that I made.
Oh, you want to hear about Biohazard? The undefeatable monster.
Do you want to hear about Sin?
Dude, I will dig my memory card out.
I don't have mine anymore, but I can remake him. I can make him stronger.